my neighbor forged my signature on a legal document and stole 3 acres of my family's land. She thought I'd never find out because the paperwork was buried in a county office 2 hours away. She was wrong. And by the time I was done, she didn't just lose the land back. She lost everything else she'd built on top of it. My name is Ivy, and I grew up on 11 acres my grandfather bought in 1974. When he passed, the land came to me. The fields, the old barn, and a strip of pasture along the eastern edge that bordered the property next door. That property belonged to Denise. Denise moved in 6 years ago with her husband, and from the start, she treated the fence line like it was a suggestion instead of a boundary. She'd let her horses graze into my pasture. She'd cut branches off trees that weren't hers to cut. Every time I brought it up, she smiled that syrupy smile and said, "Oh, I didn't realize that was your side, Ivy. I'll fix it." She never fixed it. 2 years ago, she started talking about formalizing the property line. She said the old survey from my grandfather's era was inaccurate, and she wanted a new one done. For both our sakes, she said, so there'd never be confusion. I didn't think much of it. I led a surveyor onto the land. I signed what I thought was a routine acknowledgement form. I didn't read it closely enough. That was my mistake, and it's one I'll never make again. 8 months later, I got a letter from the county assessor's office. It referenced a boundary line adjustment, filed and recorded, that moved the property line nearly 200 feet onto my side. 3 full acres, including half my pasture and the access road to my barn, were now legally part of Denise's parcel. I called the county the next morning, certain it was a clerical error. The woman on the phone read me the filing date, the notary stamp, and the signature line. My signature. Except I never signed a boundary adjustment. I signed what I believed was an acknowledgement that a survey had taken place. Nothing more. I drove straight to the courthouse and paid for a certified copy of the actual filed document. When it printed out, my stomach dropped. It wasn't the paper I remembered signing. The wording was different, the page was different, and the notary listed on it wasn't the surveyor's notary. It was someone I'd never met, working out of an office attached to Denise's husband's real estate firm. I sat in my truck in the courthouse parking lot for 20 minutes, just staring at that page. Denise hadn't asked for a favor. She'd built a paper trail to take my land, and she'd used my own trust in her as the tool to do it. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I called my grandfather's old attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Patricia, who'd handled his estate. I brought her both documents, the acknowledgement I remembered signing, which I'd kept a copy of in my files, and the boundary adjustment that was actually filed. She laid them side by side on her desk and went quiet for a long moment. "This is document substitution," she said. "Somebody swapped the page you signed for a different one before it went to the notary. That's not a mistake. That's fraud." She had me pull my own copy of what I'd originally signed, dated with my grandfather's old surveyor's letterhead. It didn't match the filed version in font, spacing, or wording. Patricia said that alone would raise questions with a judge, but we needed more. She hired a forensic document examiner to compare the 2 signatures. The examiner's report came back within 2 weeks. The signature on the filed document showed subtle inconsistencies in pressure and stroke pattern consistent with tracing, not an original signing. While we waited on that report, I did some digging of my own. I pulled public records on the notary listed on the filing. Her commission was registered to an address that turned out to be a mailbox rental store, not a real office. She wasn't licensed to notarize in our county at all. Her commission had actually expired 4 months before the date stamped on my document. then I found something that made everything click. Denise's husband's firm had filed 2 other boundary adjustments in the past 3 years, both involving elderly neighbors, both using the same expired notary. Both of those neighbors had since sold their properties for less than market value to a shell company registered at Denise's husband's business address. This wasn't about a fence line. It was a pattern. Denise and her husband had been quietly carving land off vulnerable neighbors for years, using forged paperwork and a fake notary to make it look legal, then pressuring people to sell once their land had shrunk enough to make holding onto it feel pointless. I wasn't the first target. I just might be the one who caught it. Patricia filed a fraud complaint with the county recorder, a formal report with the state notary licensing board, and a civil suit to void the filing and restore the original boundary. She also looped in a friend of hers at the district attorney's office because forged land records aren't just a civil matter, they're a criminal one. The county recorder froze the filing within a week, pending investigation. That alone was enough to stall a refinance Denise and her husband had in progress, one that used the expanded property as collateral. Their loan officer put everything on hold the moment the title came back flagged. Denise showed up at my door 3 days later, without the syrupy smile this time. "You're gonna ruin us," she said. "It was just a boundary. It's 3 acres, Ivy. You don't even use that part." "You forged my signature," I said. "That's not a boundary dispute. That's a crime. And you didn't just do it to me." Her face changed the second I said that last part. She knew exactly what I meant. The forensic report went to the state notary board, which suspended the notary's expired commission permanently and referred her for prosecution. The district attorney's office opened a formal fraud investigation into Denise and her husband, pulling records on the other 2 properties I'd flagged. One of the elderly neighbors, a man named Roy who'd sold his land 2 years earlier believing his property had genuinely shrunk, came forward once he heard what was happening. He hadn't wanted to make trouble alone. He just needed someone to go first. The civil suit restored my boundary exactly where it had always been. The judge didn't stop there. She awarded damages for the survey costs, the attorney fees, and what she called the deliberate erosion of trust between neighbors for financial gain. Denise's husband's firm lost its ability to process land filings in the county while the investigation continued, which effectively froze their entire business model. 6 months later, their house went up for sale. Not because a judge forced it, because the legal fees, the frozen deals, and the reputation damage in a small county where everyone talks made staying untenable. I heard they moved 2 counties over, somewhere nobody knew their name yet. I still have the fence line. I still have the pasture, the access road, and the barn my grandfather built with his own hands. But what I really kept was the reminder that a signature is a promise. And when someone breaks that promise quietly enough, the only way to stop them is to look closer than they think you will. If this story hit home, hit subscribe. New betrayal and karma stories drop every week. And if someone's ever tried to take something from you quietly, thinking you wouldn't notice, tell me what happened in the comments. I read every single one. See you in the next story.